Tonight, we again present the famous Mr.
ML on the Soul of Detroit.
in his famous cases of crime and murder. Brought to you by the makers of genuine Bayer aspirin and Phillips Milk of Magnesia tablets.
You asked interrogative questions. It's gone.
What are you doing?
That is not paid for by them. That is paid for by the people of Detroit.
You might be qualified, ML.
I'm not qualified for this job.
Let me tell you something. You want to go right now? Okay? You want to go right now, Al?
Hey kids, it's your old pal ML Elrich here with another episode of the Soul of Detroit. Marc Fellhauer is not with us. He is at Mount Rushmore. He told me it was very important to him, particularly in the wake of the January 6 hearings that began in Congress, to go and see if Donald Trump did indeed add his head to Mount Rushmore after leaving office. So Marc is going to give us a on-the-scene report at some point on this, but I believe he is still in transit or waiting for his kids to get out of the rest stop. So he's not here, which means Patrick Schmitz, our intern, will be producing the show with Joey Zuver kind of doing the Geppetto role where he's pulling the strings and Patrick dances around like a real boy.
And as long as I don't set the place on fire, I'll consider this a success.
Yeah, no, not like my man in Office Space, the red stapler. Myron, I'm gonna set the building on fire. You know, burn the place down. Nobody's seen Office Space.
Might be a dated reference.
No.
Mike Judge, Office Space, one of the greatest workplace comedies of all time.
Let that be a lesson to you. By the way, you don't think Marc was
Cult
out there?
favorite.
You don't think Marc was out there to see if you were on Mount Rushmore?
There's not enough granite in the world to give me a life size.
Proper jib.
Yeah, the head should be actual size, and I just don't think the mountain's big enough to accommodate my my sizable.
Kaleena's already shaking her head.
Coconut.
It's
Yeah,
less than 2 minutes in.
And
Yeah.
Kaleena Niece, our NIL athlete, is here to give us an update on what she's doing this summer. And so we're glad to have her back now that we have an extra chair. And because we do have an extra chair and it's kind of cool down here and hot out there, we've opened our cooling shelter and invited an indigent man to participate in this show, Mr. Shawn Windsor.
Thank you. That's very kind of you.
Well, we didn't want
I
you
wonder
to...
when you're going to notice the sign I've been holding up out front on your street.
Oh, the one that will handle your column for food?
Sure.
Do a lot of people misinterpret that? I mean, you are a columnist, but it could be seen
I
as
don't
a
know. I don't
euphemism.
get paid for it. I mean, who would want to pay?
I don't know. I saw Midnight Cowboy.
Another dated reference.
Yes, that's even an old movie for me. Current stuff for Shawn, but anyway. But it's great to have you guys here. We have a lot to talk about, and the reason we're able to talk about it is because of our very generous sponsors like Hall Financial.
Get the home buying help you've been looking for from Hall Financial. They have actually created a Buy Smart program to help your buyers by offering down payment assistance. There are actually multiple benefits from this Buy Smart program they've created. You receive credit towards your initial down payment, you receive a better interest rate than on a standard loan, and new home buyers receive a reduced mortgage insurance for their first time buying. Housing inventory is on the rise, and it's an exciting time to be a home buyer.
That's right. So if you want to get a good deal on a new mortgage, if you need some financing for your house, refinance, you want to take some money out of your house, call Hall. You can reach them at 866-225-5425, or you can find a link to their website on our website, which is mlsoulofdetroit.com. I've used them to do 2 deals. They were great to work with, and I hope that they will treat you right as well. And for those of us who have a little bit of money in the stock market and even more in our 401ks, it is very, very frightening to look at that stuff. Don't freak yourself out. If you're worried about how to manage your money, how to set yourself up for a comfortable retirement, you need to consult our friend Luke Nowacki.
When it comes to market investing, some people ask, what happens if everything goes down to zero? Well, if we face a worldwide geoeconomic calamity that we've never experienced before, and all of our equity investments go down to zero, then we will no longer even have to worry about the money. But if that happens, the can of soup in your pantry is actually worth more than all of the world's companies collectively. Almost certainly, the market will revert from lows and push on to new highs like this has happened every time throughout American history. Are you positioned to take advantage of the rebound like Dennis Rodman when it arrives? Call Luke Nowacki with Pinnacle Wealth Strategies at 248-663-4748 to discuss strategies moving forward. That's 248-663-4748.
Because when you call Luke Nowacki, he'll make it all about you, sweetheart.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Royal Alliance Associates Inc. Member FINRA-SIPC. Royal Alliance Associates Inc. is separately owned, and other entities and/or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent of Royal Alliance Associates Inc.
Seamless. Who needs that Marc Fellhauer guy?
Was that new copy?
It was no. I think Patrick just did it the way it's supposed to be done.
Tossed the Dennis Rodman in there.
Yeah, he's known for his financial acumen, right? And
Yes.
his
interesting friendships.
Is that a dated reference too?
Not really.
Okay.
I mean, my mom not knew Dennis Rodman, but met him a few times.
I've seen that
back
guy
when
last
she used to
time.
work at the Palace.
That's right. Well, he's
Like
still
green hair now, right?
I would think with all the interest now in like drag queen shows and stuff like that, RuPaul's Drag Race, that Dennis Rodman should have his own show because he was cross-dressing way before cross-dressing was cool.
He was.
I think he was the one who made it cool.
It's possible. He certainly made Kim Jong-un cool. And by that I mean not cool.
I know what you mean.
Okay. His last name is also Un. So that's what made it so funny. Okay, maybe we do need Marc here. Joe, save me. Joe? No? Joe's okay. Joe's like, I'm staying away from this shit. Okay, last thing I have to tell you guys, if you support this show, we really appreciate when you support our sponsors. You can go to our website to find links to them. When you call them, make sure they know that you know about them from our show, or just go there. Like, hit the Kaju Cafe because there's always something great going on at the Kaju Cafe. Mondays, Open Blues Jam and Muscle Madness. Tuesdays, Sweet and Funky Soul, presented by Funk Night Records. Wednesdays, Karaoke. Thursdays, It's the Strange. Friday, Revival, an Allman Brothers tribute band takes a stand. And on Saturday, it's East Side Still Alive. Sunday, Delta 5 and the Twist and Tarantulas play live. For more information on the great food, the feather bowling, the great music, go to cajucafe.com. That's CADIEUX, because it's French, cafe, which is also French.com.
Good job.
No,
You always have to bring up the French thing, don't you?
Well, Detroit was a French city before it was an English city.
Well, he speaks French. He's very proud of that.
Oui.
And you should be. Oui.
Merci.
Thank you.
See, there
You're
you go.
welcome.
I'm just trying to back you up.
Yeah.
You could have said,
I don't speak French.
Oh, you don't?
Yeah, why'd you choose French?
Because he wanted to look down on everybody else.
I always wanted to go to France, and it did not disappoint. It's a great place. But I wish I'd spoken Spanish. I should have picked Spanish. Much more places to go. A lot of cool joints. Go South America, Central America, Europe, Southwest Detroit.
Could have taken Latin instead, and you would have gotten French and Spanish.
Yes, I could have talked to all the dead people that I wanted to catch up with.
Well, you can actually get the bases for all the languages that are derived from Latin by learning it.
Yeah, no, those are the Romance languages. I was looking to learn a language so I could go someplace cool, not so I could end up as some sort of hermit. That's a lot of studying, and
In a basement.
I barely get. Well, yeah. Look how that worked out.
We
avoided being in the basement.
With a black ceiling. What language are you studying, Kaleena?
I took German in high school way back when, just because my dad's German, and when he was little, he was fluent. He'd go to Germany every year, and my brother took German, so I took German.
I
You
was
remember
born in
much?
München.
A little bit.
Sorry, Patrick.
Ich mag Cali.
So your name is Callie?
No, that means
You're-
I like Cali.
Oh, okay.
I
So-
like saying Ich mag schlafen in meiner Großkartoffel gegessen. And that
You like to sleep?
directly translates to I like to sleep after eating a lot of potatoes. I don't remember much, but I remember random words. So
See, I was actually born in München, so
That's Munich to you.
Oh yeah, Munich. Sorry, lost in translation.
Interweb.
Yeah, my father's been trying to get me to take more German. I took it for a few years, but I actually started with Latin. And my professor, he I don't know if he was capping about this, but he said that the priests that taught him how to speak Latin in Rome, they were also ninjas, actual Like they were martial artists and stuff like that had their own like defense system.
I don't know if I would trust him.
I don't know. He
I
just
can't
said-
really see a priest
With the
beating
amount of
people up.
details that he was giving, I couldn't tell if he was being serious or
Is
not.
capping Latin?
Capping is just a Gen Z slang for lying,
What about like?
exaggerating.
Like is not slang.
Like is your generation. That was from Scooby-Doo.
No, but y'all use it all the time.
What do you want me to say? As if?
Or just don't use it.
What are you supposed to say then?
Keep
When you're
keep on to the
describing
next
something.
word.
It's like the
Yeah.
I think that's what he's saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like was created in your guys'
That's why.
generation,
That's why.
not ours.
Yeah, I was gonna
Kaleena doesn't
say.
like old people because they're always
No, they're mean.
Get it from
they?
Shaggy from Scooby-Doo.
Yes.
What do you mean they're mean?
People are grumpy.
Is Mike mean?
No.
He's not mean. Mark's not mean.
I mean, like old people that like can't move anymore. You know what I mean? When they get like really old and
Yeah,
they're just
so,
like,
yeah, what do you
really
mean by
going
old?
on.
What are we talking about?
80s.
Oh, okay.
saying.
You
Damn.
just alienated all of our 80-year-old listeners.
Sorry,
with that.
sorry.
Yeah, that's why we can't ever get the Rolling Stones to come on this show.
Because of me?
Hostile. You're triggering them. Yeah,
Boy, I don't like when old people are mean to me.
I think Mick Jagger can still.
I just
move.
remember my dad's mom was living in a nursing home. All the people would be so rude to me. I hated
See,
it.
I've always had great experience with old people. They're always super nice to
That's
me.
because you speak Latin.
Yeah.
I love my
To
mom's
them,
side
it's a
of the
live
family,
language.
Great.
That's what they learned in school.
You think so?
They probably just wanted you to put a little talcum on their bottom. That's all.
Sorry.
And you probably shouldn't have stolen their rice pudding.
I shouldn't have said anything. Sorry.
Well, at the risk of alienating all old people who may shop in Sylvan Lake, Kaylee is brought to us by the butchery.
That is true. I had the butchery catering my sorority's alumni event a couple months ago, and it was great. Everyone loved it. So if you guys are looking to have a great barbecue this summer, check out the butchery on Orchard Lake Road. They're open Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Or if you want them to cater your next party, barbecue, or event, call them at 248-682-2697 or email them at tbutchery@gmail.com.
What was the tastiest bite at the sorority gathering?
Oh, the burgers, for sure. It's like their bacon burgers.
Bacon, but it's not bacon on top of the burger, right? Because
No, it's in the
ground
burger.
up.
exactly, it's ground
Yeah.
up
It's
and then
also
cooked
got beef
inside.
too, right? It's bacon and the beef, right?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure.
It's so good.
We've had those here. We've had Dave brought those here.
Yeah.
a few times.
Yeah.
They're delicious.
I buy them too all the time. And I make 'em
Everything
for my
at the
friends.
butchery is great. They also have a cool grocery store and very reasonably priced craft beers. What happened at this sorority party that you can tell us because we know your parents aren't listening?
My mom was there. It was an alumni event.
Well, I know what kind of trouble she gets into. What would you tell us if your mother's mother wasn't listening?
I mean, they all took me to Landshark afterwards, and we hung out at Landshark. And
Did you see the governor there?
No, unfortunately, Gretchen wasn't there.
She was not there. Okay.
You consider her old?
No.
No, she's
She's
a
like my
MILF.
mom's age. She's got kids my age.
Okay.
So there was no big Gretchen, but was this the kind of party where there's a lot of big Gretchen out in the alley behind? I mean, did you guys really go crazy?
No, not really. I haven't gone crazy in a long time. I'm working. I've got classes.
Are you
It's
bored with that now? Is that what's going on?
Well, I don't have time.
Really?
Right now, I'm working 5 to 7 days a week. I'm taking 2
Good for you.
classes.
Good for you. You don't need a day off.
Damn.
No, today was one of my days off, and I'm here.
Okay, see, that's the kind of commitment
That's
we're
punishment.
looking for from our young people. And Patrick's here every week through the summer, so that's
Yeah, I know.
wasted youth.
Well, speaking of wasted, I don't really get wasted since I turned 22. I mean, once I was 21, it kind of just wasn't even fun anymore. So
You outgrew it. In
yeah,
1 year.
it was like once like it was legal, it was like not even fun.
So breaking the law was what was fun, not getting
Yeah, it
hammered.
was just the doing what you weren't supposed to do that I found enjoyable. Not
like that.
not the actual drinking itself.
I like that.
That's our east
You're an
side.
insurgent.
Our east side bad boy. Well, somebody else is doing something who some people feel he shouldn't be doing is a guy named Nicholas John Bobeck Hathaway, who I wrote about in 2020 when he was running for judge. And he legally changed his name to take his wife's last name because the Hathaways, if you've been in court in Wayne County, there's a good chance that the judge presiding over your case is a Hathaway. Now, Mr. John Nicholas John Bobeck Hathaway took his wife's last name, so his name was Bobeck Hathaway, but when he ran for judge, he only ran as Hathaway, and he narrowly lost in a race by less than 1% of the vote. I think it was 0.04% was the margin of defeat. But because most candidates are told if you've run once, you'll probably win the next time, he is back. But this time, instead of being Nicholas John Bobeck Hathaway, he's Nicholas John Bobeck Hathaway. And I see...
What's the difference?
Well, I see three people looking at me puzzled.
You lost
Shawn
me.
normally does that, but you
Is
two...
there a hyphenation
that's
change or
new.
something?
Yes, now he's claiming that Bobeck is no longer part of his last name. It's
another
part of
middle name.
his middle name. So...
Is he married to Anne Hathaway or something?
No, he's married to Dana Hathaway, who is a judge and a very lovely person. But
You wrote the column because you wanted to use the phrase robe tails.
robe tails.
You wanted the pun. You thought of the pun first, and you said, I'm going to go ahead and write a column about that. Is that what happened?
I only write the Free Press's new On Guard column because I'm trying to help the good people of our area understand what's going on in politics, what's going on behind the scenes, and to know things that no one else would tell them.
If it were reversed, what would you say? What would you think? Should we have a problem with a partner wanting to take a little shine from their, from their partner?
No, I think it's fantastic.
I do too.
The issue is that this guy isn't just coming clean and saying, listen, I am a Hathaway now. I want to be a Hathaway. If he wanted to do that, he shouldn't have kept Bobeck as part of his last name when he changed it.
Why?
Why? Because as I think you know from reading that story, because I know you read every word, you were rapt attention and not capping about how you spent your reading time.
I'm going to take a lot of flack for that one.
But
That was bad.
well, on the east side, capping means somebody's dead. So when
Again, a dated reference,
Like,
but no,
bust a
but
cat.
continue.
So the state bar of Michigan has an ethics opinion that was issued to a judicial candidate who was running for office and was concerned that he may be mistaken for his wife, who was a retiring judge, about how he should present himself so there's no confusion in the minds of voters. And the State Bar of Michigan, which is the organization that licenses lawyers and basically serves as the Temple of Solomon for lawyers in Michigan, says that when you run for office, you should use your full name and you should do everything within your power to avoid creating confusion in the mind of voters. And to me, if this gentleman was running for office as Nicholas Bobeck Hathaway or Nicholas John Bobeck Hathaway, there would be no problem whatsoever, because some people would say, oh, that's my man Nick, the guy I grew up with, Nick Bobeck. And other people would say, oh, that's Nicholas Bobeck who married into the Hathaway family. And everybody would know exactly who they were talking about. But this guy is working so hard to bury his identity, to hide that he's a Bobeck. And on behalf of the Bobeck family, sorry about that. I'd be a little bummed out. But he keeps going to court. Every year or so, he goes to court to try and make sure that he only appears as Nicholas John Hathaway. And there are a lot of people who believe it's because he is trying to cash in on the very successful and popular name of Hathaway. Voters have shown themselves to vote for Hathaways in Wayne County almost without fail.
So he wants the association, which he's earned to some degree by the relationship, right? Are people out there confusing Nicholas with Dana?
No, I don't
So
think
what's
so.
the confusion?
It's just weird. I don't know why he wouldn't just hyphenate his last name.
Well, he's saying he hyphenated his middle name.
Yeah, that's stupid.
But it's one of these games that politicians play because they are counting on an overburdened, under-rested, frantic public to just look at a name on a ballot and say, I know them, I'll vote for him. I mean, I know somebody who voted for Lonnie Bates the first time he ran for city council. And let me just tell you briefly who Lonnie Bates is. He was a Detroit Public School Board member who was constantly doing crazy stuff, spending tons of money, acting the fool, ended up getting hired by the Recreation Department in Detroit, got fired after Fox 2 exposed him for never working when he was supposed to be
You
working.
said briefly? No?
It was going faster, so I got interrupted.
Okay.
And who then, despite all this infamy, ran for Detroit City Council and essentially was elected because people recognized the name because they'd seen it in headlines. And after he got on council, he ended up getting convicted of all kinds of public corruption because it turns out he was always a bum. And unfortunately, some people voted for him because like, oh, I know that name. So it is not unheard of for people to try and win elective office to serve the people when really they want the people to serve them up a pretty cushy job. And they will try and do that occasionally by picking a very famous name. In this case, he comes by the name by marriage, but he's trying so hard to distance himself from who he has been for 30 years that it raises questions. And if anybody sees that story, you'll know that I also expose some other things about his work habits as a referee, which is a kind of judge, that may raise some other questions in voters' minds. And if you miss the story, we'll have the full link on our website, which is mlsoulofdetroit.com.
I really did love Robe Tales.
You did like that?
I did. That was nice.
I wasn't sure whether just leave it at robes.
Really?
Yeah.
Or Tales.
No, I wouldn't say that. That would seem inappropriate.
Well, yeah. In your mind, yeah.
No, I think that's incontrovertible. And the other reason we're kind of flying a little bit raggedy today is just kind of got the show pieced together before we launched because I was up late last night working on a story that you'll find in the Detroit Free Press, which also publishes Shawn Windsor's work. And we'll be talking also about a very moving column that Shawn wrote. And I know Shawn and I like to get into it and have some good-natured ribbing, or sometimes I do good-natured ribbing. Sometimes he's just mean and hurtful, and I think a lot of it comes out of jealousy and envy and a feeling of inadequacy that has been brought on by a life of knowing that he's not as good as other people on the podcast, one person in particular who's already been insulted for the size of his head. But anyways, I
wasn't talking about the size of your head. I was talking about the importance of you.
You insulted your own head.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
I was
really
just talking
did.
about the importance of you.
I was simply making a factual
And
statement.
you just assumed that I was talking about your ego. I was not. I was talking about the importance of Mike Elrick.
I was trying not to name the person who you were denigrating because of your desperate inadequacy.
And you do have a nice jawline, so it would look good up there.
Because
next
of how
to
much
the fellas.
detail you gave, it kind of sounds like you might be the jealous one.
Of himself?
No, of
I
Shawn.
think Patrick.
Do you think he is jealous? That's a good question, Kaleena.
It's been great having
Jealous
Patrick
of
on the
him?
show. This is Patrick's last day. If you'd like to make a contribution to the podcast on behalf of Patrick, you can do so at ML Detroit.
So you were talking about good-natured ribbing, and then it quickly turned into not so good-natured ribbing. But go ahead.
Yeah, because of your hatefulness. But Shawn had a wonderful column.
Projection.
A very moving column, something you don't often see in the sports pages that we're going to be talking about today as well. But first I have to get to something that's this is breaking news. This is something that I know a lot of our listeners are very concerned about, and listeners of the Red Shovel Network in general talk a lot about, and that is Dan Gilbert and the tax breaks his projects have received in Detroit. And we posted a story this morning, you can find it at freep.com, about city council members who have received large contributions from a political action committee funded by Dan Gilbert, some of whom have already recommended a $60 million tax break for Dan Gilbert's Hudson's project. This is the signature project of the Gilbert Empire that will loom above downtown, rising from the former Hudson's department store site on Woodward. And it turns out that two council members received $17,000 in contributions from the Rock Holdings PAC, and that three other council members received very large contributions from this PAC. And so now we're expecting City Council to vote today on whether to give Dan Gilbert this large tax break. And the Free Press, myself, my colleagues J.C. Rendell and Dana Fana, revealed that a majority of the Detroit City Council received large campaign contributions last year, and they are now going to vote on this deal. And there's one other guy who's involved in this process who, if the City Council approves it, will also need to sign off on that. That's Mayor Mike Duggan, who's also received thousands of dollars from Gilbert's PAC, and from Gilbert himself. And we wrote about this story not suggesting that anybody's going to sell their vote, but because this is the kind of thing people deserve to know when a major piece of public policy is going to be decided. Very few people are out there looking at what the motivations and what the influences might be on public officials. And your old pals at the Free Press are looking out for you. We're being the watchdogs that you expect of journalists. And so just as this vote is about to happen, we kind of found this out late in the game and said, oh my goodness, people need to know this. So as we're talking, I don't know what's going on at City Council, but we hope that you know that we're following the dough. And I should also say that Gilbert's people say, we don't, there's no backroom deal here. We just support people for City Council who we think will be good leaders and will serve the city of Detroit.
Did they support your campaign?
They did not. They supported my opponent.
Bastards.
And they did mention to me when we were talking, it's like, well, we know you ran for City Council. And I said, that's a matter of public record. In fact, our story disclosed that one of the people who took a $10,000 contribution is the other person who ran for City Council, Letitia Johnson, who succeeded, who has already recommended passage of this deal. But I never asked the Gilbert people for a donation. And one of the reasons why is because if I got elected, I knew I would have to vote on deals involving Dan Gilbert and his companies. And I'm not saying anybody has sold their vote, but I think the people who send you to City Hall like to know that when you make a decision, they don't have to worry about who sent you there and how you got there. And we spoke to some ethics experts who said, listen, the problem with these kind of things is it raises questions about a possible conflict of interest. It undermines confidence in government when the people who send you to make decisions see that you're taking a lot of money from the people who are asking you to do things that will help their company, their business, themselves. So this is pretty serious public policy stuff. I know.
Do you need some water?
No. I'm just rolling along. I'm overcome by the gravity of this situation.
It's a good story.
So do you
Important
think that they shouldn't be voting yes, or is the only issue you see is that it might appear that people are being paid for a vote?
Well, I think the reason we have campaign finance disclosure laws is so that you can see where politicians and elected officials get their money, so that you yourself can take a look and examine that and say, if they took this money, is that why they're doing it? And ask questions. And one of the problems that I have with elected officials, and I see more and more of this every year, is that when elected officials are asked questions like, what effect did this donation have on your decision-making process? Will this impact your decision to vote for or against the project? They don't want to answer those questions. They feel like they're not obligated to answer those questions and explain themselves. And to me, that's a bigger problem than anything else, because now you have elected officials taking a lot of money from a small number of people, taking an oath to serve a large number of people, and then essentially refusing to tell that large number of people whether or not that money they took from the small number of people is going to affect the decision they're going to make for all of us.
Well, I feel like that's like a given. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours kind of thing. Like, if they're giving you money, you're going to help them out in the long run. So I feel like if I'm electing someone and I know the Gilberts gave them a lot of money, I know they're going to support the Gilberts in the long run.
So what if a politician or an elected official said to you, well, I know why you would think that, because you see I took money, I got elected, the people who gave me the money are expecting me or asking me for my support for something, but that's not really how it worked. I looked at the project, it makes sense, and this project may be a great project for Detroit. We're not commenting on the merits of the project, but if somebody told you that, what would you say to them?
Bullshit.
Okay.
Politician, of course.
Well, if I was a politician, I would want people supporting me that I genuinely want to support. So maybe they did like it, but they gave them the money first. So.
Well, I think some of these politicians have sent out a vibe that, I'm not going to be controlled by these downtown billionaires, but they ended up taking the money from the downtown billionaires.
Yeah,
so
now they're being controlled by the downtown billionaires.
Well, it may look that way. Now, this is the 50th anniversary of Watergate, and Shawn and I I was very young when Watergate happened. Shawn was 30. But do you think,
That's
Shawn...
the good-natured ribbing?
Oh,
Yeah, that would make you 80, which
meant
means
to
that
be.
Kaleena wouldn't like you.
Yeah.
Shawn gets up and around. He's already run to the bathroom twice. But
No, once, but I am going to go again. Damn it. Especially the longer you talk. But no, go ahead. What was your question?
But do you
Something about
think-
money and politics?
So
Thank you.
Watergate was 50 years ago, and I think when we were little kids, I wonder, do you think that young people when we were young would react the same way that Kaleena has reacted, that when a politician says, the money didn't affect me, I did what I thought was right, her immediate reaction is, that's bullshit. Do you think that that's changed over the last 20, 30 years?
No, I think it was true back then.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that much has always been the case.
I think so, yeah.
That we believe politicians are motivated more by money than by...
I think that's true for the last 100 years. I think that most folks have a very cynical view of it.
As much as I want to believe that government isn't a business, it's still a business. And it will forever be a business. Everything is business.
And if you can't get money to get elected, then you're out of business.
Yeah.
Is that it? Okay. Well, when I was running for council, we talked about who we would...
Back when? In the 30s?
I was in my 30s. It was just last year because I'm very young and vibrant. But I'm kind of the bridge between you and these young adults.
So.
But the thing that I heard from somebody that really struck with me is you shouldn't accept a contribution from somebody unless you're prepared to vote against them.
What?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it for a second, you should not accept a contribution from someone unless you're prepared to vote against them. In other words...
That the money won't affect you.
Yes, if you're only taking the money, or if you're taking the money and you feel like you're obligated, so you gave me this money, I know I got to vote for you now, then you should do one of two things. Either not take the money because you don't want somebody to own you, or you should get money somewhere else because really, and I like that idea because it basically says, hey, listen, if I'm taking money from you, you own me. Politicians need money to get elected. There's no question about that. Politicians take large and small contributions from all kinds of places, and we note that in our story. And they seldom, if ever, make a promise that because you gave me this money, I'm going to do what you want me to do. But I know when I was running for office, I would meet with. So I tried to raise a lot of money from labor groups because I'm a pro-union guy. I've been a union activist, a union officer, a union organizer, all that other stuff. And I would tell them, I was like, listen, we're not always going to agree, but we're coming from the same place. We both believe in collective bargaining. And so I think we're going to agree more often than not, but there are going to be times when we're probably going to be looking at each other kind of cross-eyed. But in general, we believe in the same things. And if you support me, you'll have somebody on city council who you know you can talk to and who you know shares your philosophy. And I think that's about as much as you can possibly do. And I don't know what these conversations were with between the council members and people from the Political Action Committee and Rock and Bedrock and all those other places. But if somebody told you what I just told you, like, why, Kaleena, I met with the people from Bedrock and I told them I really appreciate this financial support, but there are going to be times when you're going to be very disappointed in me.
I mean, if
I believe that,
if I was going to give you money, I wouldn't anymore. You know what I mean?
That would be it.
Yeah, I'd just be like, okay, well, if you're not going to support me, I'm not going to support you.
So you believe that donors are solely motivated by wanting to put people in power who will do effectively what they're told to do?
Well, maybe not entirely, but like a lot of it has to be, well, I like this candidate and I think they're going to do great things. Here, I'm going to give them my money. They're going to support me the rest of the way through my business ventures, and it'll be a mutually beneficial thing. But, I mean, the way you're describing it is ideal. You would want someone to be like, sometimes I'm not going to just vote for you because I'm voting for you. I want it to be because I want to vote for you.
But
what would the motivation be of the
I did
donors?
that, and of course I lost, so
What would
that's
the
not
motivation
exactly
of
the
the
winning.
donors be?
That's not exactly the winning strategy, but...
What's the other motivation for the donors if it's not to affect or influence policy?
Well, think about it this way. Let's go back to the union example. Like,
Well, that was an easy question.
No, but I'm going to give you a little case study here. I'm a union sympathizer on city council. You're a union that supported me. A contract comes before city council calling for 10% raises for everybody in your union. I want to support my union brothers and sisters and working people, but I look at the city budget and I say, if we give people 10% raises, we're going to be bankrupt, so I got to vote against it. That would be an example where you're on the same page, you have the same feelings, the same sympathies, the same loyalties.
Right, but that's
then
from the
you vote against
perspective-
what somebody wants because they're like, damn you, we donated to you and we expect this 10%
Right, but
raise.
that's my point. I mean, what other motivation does a donor have? You made it sound like there's other
I guess
possibilities.
the other reason why a donor would
mom
donate to somebody
donated.
is to try and make sure the other guy doesn't win.
Oh, a blocker.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's...
But again, that's to influence and affect policy, right? Because the other person has thoughts about how things should be run that they don't agree with. So, I mean, you don't give money, period, unless you want to change something or
Yes.
keep something the same.
You tend to support
Right.
like-minded people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's that. But
So-
then there are some people...
They're not giving money just because, I believe in the democratic process, and I'm just willy-nilly giving it to whomever.
So let me flip
Right.
the question to you. If somebody on city council said, well, of course I'm going to vote for this. They gave me $10,000. You'd be okay with that.
It's the
Because
exact
that's just
same
how it
thing,
works.
More money.
By the way, this little, what do you
Well,
call
I
this?
had
What do you
I had
call this
there
on,
was
on a
question.
micro?
It was a very short question.
The no bullshit news. What do you call this little jacket or whatever? That you
Mike
put?
flag.
Mike flag. Thank you, young person. It's blocking one eye, so I'm only seeing you through one eye, and you're still as handsome as ever through one eye. I just want to point that
You know
out.
who's seeing all of my face and all of our faces? The people watching us on YouTube channel ML Elric.
Nice.
We appreciate
Thank
it
you for naming it after yourself.
if
That
you
was nice and
subscribe
humble.
to YouTube channel ML Elric. Not only will you see the live broadcast of our show, you can watch replays of previous shows, and if you subscribe by hitting that little button, then you can get a notification when we go live. Patrick, is that all that people need to know about following us on YouTube?
So when you subscribe to the channel, there will be a bell that will appear right next to the subscription button. All you got to do is click that, and it'll give you the option to have a notification sent to you only sometimes or every time that we post a
Oh,
video.
you want it every time.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, you want it every time. And they'll YouTube will send you a notification whenever we post a video, so you'll never miss one.
Plus, you get to see the face of the human being who's going to be the next cutout on Mount Rushmore.
Oh, wow. And Shawn, you're a Monty Python fan, right?
Yeah, been a while.
Huge
So,
Monty Python fan.
what's
Dated reference, but you guys know it. You know Monty Python?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's my
wow.
Life
So
of Brian's my
This is
favorite movie.
exciting.
so what's brown?
I
and
don't believe
sounds
that.
like a
I thought
bell?
Star Wars was. But anyway, you have a right to change your mind. What's that?
I said, what's brown and sounds like a bell?
I'm
A
afraid.
brown bell.
I'm afraid to ask.
Dung. That's a Monty Python joke. Right, so.
Yeah, good one.
Okay. Your Majesty is like a stream of bat's piss.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that one?
Not really, but that's
The insult they have the king and they're doing all these insults and all
Yes.
the literary figures are insulting him and then each one insults the king and then when the king says what, he says, well, it was the other guy who said, and then he has to get himself out of the trap and say so I think I think Oscar Wilde says to King George whatever, Your Majesty is like a stream of bat's piss. He goes, what? And he says, well, it was George Bernard Shaw. And he goes, he says, you shine out like a light of a beam of gold when all around is dark. And so they just keep trying to top each other.
Yeah, no, it was a great show.
Yeah. And
Thank you.
speaking of a stream of bat's piss, you stick with us for another minute or two?
Yeah, what you got? What you got in mind?
Well, I wanted to see if you know. Okay, so I got
Spit it out,
I
man.
got to stick with this topic, this City
Spit it
Hall
out.
thing, for just a minute longer because
Because the people
I think-
demand it.
no, because I think one of the reasons why we're so cynical about politics
Because of people like Kaleena.
is because
What did I do?
Because the people we keep electing don't engage with us enough and talk to us enough and give us a sense of who they really are so that we just kind of go A plus B equals C. Politician takes money, means they're in the bag for whoever gave them the money.
And you want a more well-rounded picture, like we've gotten to know Kaleena.
No, I think there's more
She's
nuance,
Clearly ageist.
So let me just say that one of the reasons why I didn't
I'm
solicit money from certain people is because I might have to vote on things that they're doing, but I could not take money from somebody and still support what they're doing. And I think you kind of lose that, right? Because if you think well, you took money from them, so you're only going to do what they say, you kind of lose sight of the fact that some decisions might be made regardless of whether money is donated because it's just the right thing to do.
There's definitely some of that goes on, right?
But
For
yeah,
sure.
like
I don't feel like the public feels that way. I think people always feel like there's an angle, right? If somebody's going to do something, there's another reason why you're doing it, right? You did this because of why you're really doing it. I guess that's the question. Why are you really doing this? And we can't even get elected officials to tell us, the acceptable reason why they may be doing this, let alone what really may be going on.
Are you just trying to suggest people donate money for arbitrary reasons, just like no reason?
No, I'm just saying that we have so little
Faith.
interaction with elected officials that we're left to assume the worst, because we often find out the worst is part of it, but because there's just no. It's sort of like if you have a boss that you haven't seen in a while or worked with in a while and things aren't going well, you get really angry at that boss or that coworker and you're like, oh, I can't wait to see him, I'm going to kill him. And then you run into him and you're sort of like, that Sean's not so bad. I kind of forgot. He's actually...
That was a nice setup. Can we just backtrack just for 1 second? Kaleena is not ageist, clearly. And can we also
Except for
say...
wanting the dead people.
No, let's just say, nursing homes for a young person...
They're scary.
Yeah, they really can be.
Sometimes.
I stopped taking my kids...
Yeah.
At one point, because it scared the shit out of them.
I always say when I get so old, like I can't live on my own. I don't want to be alive anymore. Just cut it.
Just put you on the ice floe with the polar bear, and if you
Yep.
make it back...
Well, the
helium
social
machine.
norms and social decorum breaks down, right? Because a lot of folks have dementia. There are all sorts of things that are going on. People that haven't, for whatever reason. So if you're 6 or 7 years old walking through that, and the way people will stare at you or the blurt things out or grab you, that happened to my own boys. We stopped taking them at one point to see my mother when she was in a dementia unit because it really, really unnerved him because of a couple of experiences. So and they're not old enough to process it. So Kaleena's absolutely right.
Clearly haven't seen a lot of horror movies.
Didn't
Well, I
they,
didn't realize you were basing that on horror movies, but that's okay.
didn't they
Doesn't
enjoy
matter.
watching Family Feud on every television in the building?
No, it was not Family Feud. It was
Wheel of Fortune.
Bert Convey's Password?
maybe it was Wheel of Fortune.
Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy. It's like the old people's religion outside
Okay,
of actual.
could
But
it have
Jeopardy's
been-
on in this very studio as we record right now.
I was gonna say,
who's
but
old
I
down here?
love watching Jeopardy. I watch Jeopardy every night with my family.
Yeah, thanks a
About
lot, Patrick.
Tattletales with William Shatner and his wife. You ever watch
William
Tattletales?
Shatner is old.
With
I don't
William-
even know what that is.
William
Family
Shatner-
Feud with Steve Harvey or rerun syndication of
Richard
Family Feud with
Dawson.
Richard Dawson? Yeah.
My old Irish granny said that if that man doesn't get hoof and mouth disease, no one ever will.
That was actually
she
a
say
pretty
it
good
like that?
impression.
She had a little better brogue than I did.
Okay. Okay.
But going back to this politicians thing.
Oh, yes, please.
So, the way I see it, and this might be a strange opinion, but why is there so much of a divide between the thought process of if a lot of people donate a little bit to somebody, then that candidate should be looking out for their interests? Like, why is that so much of a difference? Then why wouldn't he look out for the interests of somebody who donated a lot? Like, yeah, it's less people, but it could be more money. It's like, it depends on the type of way you look at contributions compared to population, but they're both doing the same exact thing either way. If you provide a donation for somebody, you're hoping that they'll keep your best interests at heart. But if somebody else gives them more money, they're probably more likely to keep their best interests at heart because they gave them the most.
May I answer that?
Yeah. So, you were going to answer? Go ahead.
I was. There's a divide because not everybody speaks Latin.
Now you're capping. But the thing is, when the ideal is to have a lot of people give you a little bit of money, because that way everybody feels invested. Everybody feels like they have a claim on you in a good way. Everybody feels like they've supported you. Everybody feels like they're part of your team. And for the candidate, the good news is, well, every decision I make, I'm going to disappoint a few people, but so many people support me, I can disappoint a few people each time because I'll still have a vast number of people who support me. But frankly, and it sounds weird to say this because there is so much cynicism in politics now, we should all be donating to candidates we believe in so that they have that broad base of support. But in reality, if you tell a candidate you can sit in this room for 10 hours and call 1,000 people to raise $5,000, getting $5 from each of them. Or I can put you to lunch at a really nice place with these guys, and they're going to give you $5,000 and pick up the tab. Almost every politician in the world is going to say, where are we eating?
May I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
So Jeopardy's, as we mentioned earlier, was on as we're recording here. Jeopardy's off now. There's a soap opera on, and there's a character with an eye patch.
Patch.
Would you wear an eye patch? Because I think you'd look good in an eye patch.
I would be like Kramer, where I would change eyes every once in a while, just to, just so that my one eye didn't feel kind
So
of
Kramer's not too dated for you two?
No, I love
You two
Seinfeld.
youngsters?
I love Seinfeld.
Too dated for me. I've never seen Seinfeld, but I've heard of it.
You're older than me. How?
So you spent all that time learning Latin.
I only took Latin for, I
Because
want to
you-
say 3 semesters.
Yeah.
Because I was really bad at it.
It was Patricus Sucus, right?
And now there's somebody crying with blood all over their shirt. Oh, this
He
is
sucked.
nice. Yeah.
So before we get to Geek of the Week, which we're going to do, Shawn, you wrote this very moving column about your cousin, who was like a brother, and I think you had just learned that he passed before you came to last week's show. Is that right? Or you just finished writing it?
No, I hadn't written it at that point. But yeah, I'd learned the day before.
Yeah,
maybe.
because you were thinking about, do I really feel like going to
Yeah, I was.
do this?
I was.
'Cause
yeah.
you were.
Yeah, I was
you're
kind
in
of out
that
of it
place.
last. You would probably say I'm out of it every time I'm here, but I was especially out of
Which
it
I
last week.
have said that. But yes, last week was standout.
So when you read the column, you probably had it helped you piece together a little bit more what you were seeing in the studio last week.
No, I just
Maybe not. You just wrote it off as me being me.
I was getting to the bottom. I want to see what your email address was at the bottom. I
see.
Look for that. No, I thought it was a powerful column, and for people who haven't seen it, we will put a link on our website. But it was about
What's
how,
the website?
It's ML Soul of Detroit.
I just wanted to hear you say that.
But when Shawn was a young man, his folks split up. He was expelled from Germany. His other family was allowed to leave on their own volition.
Yeah, no, I was escorted, armed guards.
Escorted, that's
Yeah.
right. From, was it Rammstein?
It was probably Patrick's father.
Oh, Fritz Schmitz. They named him because they wanted him to get beat up a lot.
Yeah, no, I did used to go to Ramstein, but
Okay.
no, that's not
The
where
concert or the Air Force Base?
we lived. The Air Force Base.
Oh, okay. All right.
And Bitburg, and
Okay.
we lived in Hahn. Anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Fascinating. So Shawn flew back to the U.S. and as a heartbroken young man, as you can imagine, when the family splits
Little
up.
boy.
Well, I think you probably have always been kind of a
You think I was 70 at 9?
maybe 60, but I mean, a little Benjamin Button going on over there.
Yeah.
But he
Is that a dated reference?
I've heard that one. That's not too
Kaleena?
Yeah, Benjamin Button. I know
Okay.
that one.
Okay.
So Shawn settles in at his aunt's house, where he is fortunate to find that he has a cousin, or I guess you already knew he had a cousin, who was about your same age, who became like a brother and was one of those people that when you need somebody to help you get through loss or grief or trauma or crisis. Brady was his name?
Brady, good memory.
Brady was
Gardner.
there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Brady Gardner.
And now he's not at the age of 52,
Two.
which is younger than you, me, and Kaleena. Patrick's kind of an old soul, but that seems way too soon.
It was. Yeah, he died of a form of dementia that kind of runs through my mother's side of the family. And
Not always fatal as you're demonstrating right now.
No. Hopefully, I have a little bit time left, but you never know. We went down to Nashville for the funeral, and the family asked me to read the column, and it was a big sort of revival.
Did you tell him it was subscriber only? Get $1 for everybody?
Yeah. It was a revival. I should have.
Okay.
I put a bucket at the edge of the stage.
Thank
It was
you.
a kind of a revival church. Southern, right? Big.
Not snake handling, but holy rollers.
Yeah, with electric instruments up on the stage and no traditional pews.
Everybody's
folded
bathed in
chair
the blood. There's a
seats.
lot of talk about the blood of Christ and anointing.
Well,
and
they
stuff
try
like
to have joy in a way, right? You've been to a service like
So
that.
not
down
so much
south.
charismatic, but just exuberant.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And
Ebullient, you might say.
yeah, it looked big building that could have been a pool hall in its other incarnation or whatever. But
Except
no,
that's sinful.
I got up and I read it, and And a lot of people came up to me afterwards, and I started to feel a little bit guilty because I didn't introduce myself. The miniatures just referred to me as Shawn when he called me up. And afterwards, the reaction to the column it kind of overwhelmed me. But in any case, I think people thought it was just, I don't know, driving a bus or teaching or
they didn't say,
coaching.
well, this is the Burkowski funeral. You're like, oh, sorry, I got to be in the next chapel.
People they were surprised at what they heard because it was most people get up in situations like that and you speak. You might jot some notes down, but you ad lib some, right? And the guy that followed me, one of Brady's best childhood friend, he ad libbed and he was great. But I read and there's a narrative to it. And so it was maybe a little bit
beautiful.
Different. Maybe it's different what they were from what they were used to hearing. And I started to feel a little bit guilty because it didn't make sense to them that just some random person would have got there and sound like that. So I started saying, no, I write for a newspaper, and so it made some more sense after that. But it was an interesting reaction, not just the column, but just the way people were kind of treating me that I could just get up there and do that. So
they were impressed, or they're like, who the hell is this old man?
Yeah, right, exactly. So when I told them I was a journalist, then they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense, right? So, but it was interesting.
Well,
that reaction.
It was a beautiful tribute, but also a little frightening because you say that this line of the family have been
very few people have survived.
Devastated by this, and it's your mother's side of the family.
It is.
Your mother succumbed to this.
She did.
Do you think that your side of the family, because of your father's genes, I should say your father's side of the family, may help you avoid that fate?
Oh, well, it's interesting. My brother and I joke. So my father died at 51 of a brain tumor, and my brother looks like my father, and I look like my mother. So we kind of joke that he'll get the tumor and I'll get the dementia. You kind of
you guys are a barrel of laughs. We're gonna have to road trip someday.
You gotta have to.
Little
take it
gallows
that way.
humor, yeah.
You try to find the spot where that's it's out there, and but at the same time you don't want to just go too crazy, right? Because you want to hope that there will be something after 50 or whatever. But so we are always looking for that space where we're in the moment, but also not completely giving up on the future. And we've kind of learned to live with it. I mean, I grew up with my mother from the time she started talking to me when I was in my late teens about it. Because her mother died at 54 of it. And, the cousins died. I mean, her sister died, her brother died, he was 60. All of the same disease. But yeah, I grew up with that. And that's one of the reasons she learned speaking of Latin, she spoke 5 languages. And she studied French in college and then went from there, spoke Japanese, Spanish, German, Portuguese, because she lived in Brazil. But in any case, she was convinced, because there are studies out there that show that language, more than anything else, can uses up your brain and synapses in your brain in a way that no other information does. Nothing, right? Because it's imprinted in there. I mean, that's why you stick a 1-year-old in any country or part of the world, and a year later they're speaking that language fluently, right? Without even being taught. It's just osmosis. So it's hardwired into us. And so there are studies that suggest if you learn more languages, you might stave off some forms of dementia, Alzheimer's in particular.
Yep.
And what my family has is not Alzheimer's. But yeah, so I'd get in the car with her, and there were tapes and language tapes, and it was just part of our life. She was convinced she was going to get it, and I'd say, Ma, you're not going to get it, right? You don't want to think that when you're 22, your mom's going to be gone. But she was right. But in any case, that's why I come here, to be with you, because of the mirth and the joy and the laughter and what'd you say, good-natured ribbing?
I may have said that, but
yeah. No,
it was written in the rundown.
No, in all sincerity, no, for sure. You just try to. That was the point of the column,
Well, it was a beautiful column.
Take the moment in.
And that was how you ended it, which I thought was interesting because you said it's the moment because that's all we have, which I kind of disagree with, because I think about stuff all the time that happened and things that I expect to happen, but I do think that when you're so geared towards where you're going that you don't really appreciate where you've been or how you're going there. And I do see a lot of people who have this relentless drive, and when they get there, I wonder if they ever say, "Oh wow, this is it," you know? And
Well, no, I'm curious what Patrick and Kaleena. I mean, don't you think to some degree that life is learning to accept where you are at the moment too? You can't always be looking out or looking back. You kind of have to be okay with where you are, and that's kind of what I mean by that.
Yeah, my brother and my father are over in Bremen right now. As you know, he went over to the UK for a few months, but my Oma has Alzheimer's, and she is currently deteriorating, and my Opa has been physically deteriorating. So they've both been losing one aspect of themselves, and they're really not even able to leave their house. My Oma, I think my father said that she doesn't recognize my brother, and but she does still recognize him, but she usually spouts on about nothing these days. So I don't really know how, like what happens with Alzheimer's. I know about like the whole forgetting thing, but I don't know any of the other effects. But yeah, like they had no idea it was coming. They lived a very happy life. Are still living a happy life, obviously, but who knows? Who knows, like, really how much more it'll be. Alzheimer's does tend to run in my family.
For you, Kaleena, how much are you thinking about what's tomorrow, next week, next month, next year?
I mean, pretty often. Like, I'm the youngest in my family. I always think about, well, once my parents are gone, and then once my brothers are gone, it's just me.
you get all the stuff.
Well, no, but I worry about it just a little bit. Like, no man on my mom's side of the family has ever lived past 60.
My mom was the first to
So.
get to 70, yeah.
It's a little scary, but I mean, I try to not pay attention to it, you know, and
You can't at some point, right?
No, because
you just can't.
it's gonna happen. I just gotta like relax and enjoy everyone while they're here.
And that was, I guess, the
life.
ultimate point of my column, right?
Well, I think the moment thing is important because I think about where I am, and I pretty much am going to do this gig and possibly one other thing, but probably not. Whereas when I was your guys' age, I'm like, I don't know where I'm going to go. You know, the idea of I might do something and see if I like it for a few years. You know, the idea of you can do anything and just get going on it. I don't feel that way anymore. Like, I don't think I could go move in the middle of nowhere, live with two other guys, make no money whatsoever, and think, well, if this works out in 10 or 20 years, I'll be where I want to be. Well, in 10 or 20 years, I'm going to be, you know, feeding the worms. Whereas you guys could say, well, I'll see if I like this, do it for a couple years, say, this blows, I'm going to do something else, go back. I mean, it's kind of, you know, when you've done some shit, you kind of feel like, that's cool, I did it, I got here, and I'm going to, what else can I do? But you also, I think, feel almost like you're locked into a pattern where you can't just say, you know, I think I'm going to go back to school and learn how to play an instrument and then begin a career as a musician, you know, because you know it's going to take 10 or 20 years. I'm like, 10 or 20 years from now, I may have arthritis and I can't, you know, play piano. I mean, it kind of, you're almost wistful, whereas with you guys, I wonder if you're thinking, oh, I can do all kinds of shit. Or are you just thinking, I got 7 jobs, I got to make some money, I'm going to have to work 10 years before I can get my own place? I don't know. Do you think like that, or is it just like happy hours at 5 o'clock?
I mean, a lot of it is like, I mean, I told you I work 5 to 7 days a week.
That's what I mean,
right now.
yeah. For you, the moment is working your ass off.
Yeah, but I'm.
Which is pretty good moment.
I mean,
depends.
yes and no. Like, people always ask me, why don't you go out? Why don't you do anything? Because I need to work to get money so that when I graduate college, I can live somewhere and have like a real job. I mean, everyone says live in the college moment. College is the best time of your life, but I see it as me getting from point A to point B. Like, I want to get a good career. I want to be in a good market when I get out of
So
school.
you're just attacking this moment so you can set up another moment.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool, right? I would say, can I just say something about the column real quick? Because this is a show we go behind the scenes, or not behind the scenes.
No, we've exhausted the amount of time allotted to your column.
I'm sorry not to make it about you. I don't want to talk about the column specifically, but just writing for a second.
Would you be sad when I die? Will you come to my funeral?
I will, and I'll write something if you'd like.
Can I read it first?
Sure.
No, go ahead.
Sure.
No.
Sure. No. I would.
I don't want all that swearing with my family.
Oh,
there.
yeah, right. No, there's a couple of things in writing this, and I'm curious what y'all think, especially with the second thing. But the first thing is At the beginning of the column, I start off with a line about how I said goodbye to my father when I was 9. And then I have a line about, and this is in Germany at an airport in Frankfurt, and he's in the glass at the terminal window, and he's looking, and I can see out through the window of the plane. And obviously it's a very difficult time. It's emotional. I mean, we were completely broken down, my brother and I, my mother, as we're leaving him. I had no idea when I was going to see him again. It ended up being a long time. But in any case, when I was young, and if I were writing something like that, I would stop. Instead of just writing, I would crane to see him, and until he was in view, and that was it. It was a really short, simple sentence. And when I was young, if I'd written that in my 20s, I would have stopped right there and tried to describe my emotions and what I was doing and what my mother and brother were doing and all of that. And that's one thing and I've known this for a long time, but in writing that column, it just is a reminder that sometimes it's just what you leave out, right? And it's just a simple declarative sentence. And people would get me craning to see my pop in that moment was more than enough. I didn't need to say anything else. And it's always a gratifying feeling when you figure something out in that way, just as a writer, or whatever it is you're doing, and building, creating, whatever it is you're doing. I don't know, maybe you're loading the dishwasher a new way that makes it more efficient. But so that is a gratifying.
You had me till the dishwasher, Shakespeare.
Yeah, sorry. The other part, real quickly, is we took a trip, and I wrote about this in the column. We took a trip from Nashville to South Florida, wherever it was, to see family. And the 4 of us, my brother and I and our 2 cousins, were in the back, and it was a 70s pickup truck laying on a ribbed metal bed with blankets, and it was in the summer. And so it was really hot. But could you imagine doing something like that now, putting your kids in the back of a pickup truck? And it had a cap on it, but, in the little crank windows where you could open the little 3-inch by 9-inch screens or whatever. But can you imagine? No seat belts. You're just back there on a metal bed for 600 miles. Isn't that something?
Yeah, no, I can imagine every other motorist calling 911 to report your ass.
Oh yeah, no, you'd lose. That's my point. You'd lose your kids if you did something like that now.
So my folks split up when I was really young, but I was visiting my dad, and he had another family, and I remember riding down the highway on the bench seat in some big old Chevy or something, where he's driving with one hand, he's got a cigarette in his other hand, and he's got my little brother under his arm, I think either the driving arm or the cigarette hand, and we're all sitting in the front seat. Nobody's got seatbelts on. I'm just like, I know that we've had a lot of public safety lectures since it, but at what point did anybody think that was safe?
I know.
I mean, it's like that great line from Succession when they go to the funeral for the molester guy, and the young woman comes back and says, "Boy, those guys over there, they're telling some really creepy stories." And he says, "Well, that was back before." And she's like, "What, before there were laws?" I mean, It's like there was never a time when some of this stuff made sense.
Can you guys imagine
cool
traveling like that? It's kind of crazy. I'm not saying
not for like 600 miles, but down the street, yeah, but not for that long.
And nobody thought
anything
of it.
On the other hand, nobody's driving around with a kid on their lap and a smoke and I think he had a cup of coffee too. That was the other thing. But we are sitting there updating our Facebook page, which is just as stupid, whether you have a seatbelt and an airbag and
I remember
voice commands.
Remember
and
the
all
car
that
guys
shit.
on NPR? That's probably
Tom and Ray Mariazzi.
Did you ever listen? No.
I listen to NPR, but not.
They once said that the minivan. Speaking of so we went from that in a pickup truck to a minivan, right? And they were talking about how it contributed to the wussification of America. I'll never forget that.
Well, we're now about an hour past the point where Marc would have sent me a text that said, "Get to Geek." So, Joey, let's get to our Geek of the Week.
Oh, man, the geeks have inherited the earth.
Did I do that?
What a dork.
Does him wanting to play with us again mean that he's turning into a geek, or we're turning into cool guys?
So I'm going to make this simple. All these greedy, wealthy, unscrupulous, asshole golfers who are now on the Live Tour, you're our Geek of the Week. And now, if you're a hungry young guy, and I saw that Carlos Menares really took a shot at this Michigan State golfer, is it James Piot, who's taken $1 million guaranteed on the tour, and he's like, well, I think the rich guys can be forgiven because they're at the end of their career, but the young guy, he's the one who has a whole future in front of him. He shouldn't have been so quick to take the easy money. I think that logic is kind of backwards, but at any rate, I would just tell you, if you're doing really well and you do something that's really shitty and you only do it for money, there is no justification for that. There's only one thing you have that nobody can take away from you, but people give away for free all the time, and that is your reputation, your good name. So Dustin Johnson, who's already made a shitload of money and is married into a rich family, Phil Mickelson, I guess who would be rich if it wasn't for all the bad gambling you've done, Greg the Shark Norman, choke artist, shitbag, all you greedy bastards who are taking the money from a murderous regime only because you want the money, you are a Geek of the Week. Bryce into Shambro.
Me again.
Sorry.
There's an all-night party in room 7609. And you can dance together all night if you've got the time.
So this week, because we have Patrick and Kaleena here, I was like, I think maybe we won't do new wave music because we'll take a break from that because they're younger. There's a whole new thing. They said, no, Mr. Elric or Sir, we really love new wave music.
That's exactly what I was thinking too.
So, Elric, please, no.
Well, it was supposed to be your lordship, but we're trying to be informal here because this is a podcast.
Jesus.
I was thinking Supreme.
Or Jesus, as Patrick.
Yeah, I don't want to get carried away with it, but whatever. But so we are going to stick with new wave music, and because last week's Sad Lovers and Giants had me in a very early Cure frame of mind, and if you go back and listen to last week, you'll hear that their song sounded very much like this song from early Cure, called A Forest. So last week when we played Sad Lovers and Giants, the song Colorless Dream, I said it was kind of soulful bass line. And Shawn said, not soulful. What do you think about the bass in A Forest?
I like it. I liked last week's bass line.
But you said not, and this is what I'm curious about, because do you think it's more mournful than soul?
The music, for sure.
But I mean, when we talk about soul, to me, that just kind of low down, heavy thudding thing, that does feel like it's hitting me in my soul. But I think your soul, I'd wonder if you're conflating soul with funk or exuberance or bounciness or
not necessarily funk, because I think there are plenty of soulful bass lines in the '60s. To me, it's the pace of it, or the beat, I guess, the speed of the beat.
Okay.
And it's a little fast for me to think of that as a soulful beat, but it could be a soulful song.
Interesting. Okay, well, this was from early Cure. This was back before Robert Smith had this crazy hair-sprayed aloe plant of a hairdo and all the white makeup on and the heavy red lipstick. He had kind of almost like a brush cut, and he was pretty pale, but it may just be because he was practicing his guitar, and he wasn't wearing necessarily open-collared shirts and his big sneakers, as he kind of became known for during the Boys Don't Cry era, and still is that his persona, where when I see him at like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and I see this big bloated Robert Smith who looks like he's in some sort of fire department clown corps, I am almost a little sad that there were evolutions in the Robert Smith appearance and persona, and why couldn't he evolve back to being just like, hey, I'm just an older dude who still likes to play kick-ass music. I don't have to put on this get-up that I know when you see The Cure you have to see. So when I listen to 17 Seconds, which is the album that A Forest is on, I kind of think back to that early Cure when he's sort of like, hey, I'm just kind of doing my thing. And
Gene Simmons took the makeup off eventually, right?
Yeah, I was about to ask, would it even really be like a Kiss concert if none of them were dressed up as they used to?
But the difference is, I don't know, did Kiss ever tour as just, four ugly guys from Jersey? I mean, or were they always...
You mean before the makeup?
Well, yeah, I mean, they're almost like Athena sprung from Zeus's head, fully formed, just like, here we are, and now he's like, shit, man, I'm old and creepy, and I still get panties, so I'll take off the makeup because I just want to get this gig over with so I can get back to Shannon Tweed.
Yeah, just like we want to get this segment over with.
Okay, so I guess that's room 7609. We always appreciate your participation. And
did Kaleena like this song, though? We didn't hear from Kaleena.
Hope so. She insisted upon it.
It was fine. I say this every week. It was fine.
I thought it was really good.
I want Kaleena.
I mean, it was better.
Will you pick a song for us, please, at some point?
Yeah. I'll do my research. I'll send something over for next week.
Okay, good.
So ask your mom. She knows. We used to go to the same parties. And I would just say, romantic partners in Kaleena's life out there. Just if you ever hear her say, it was fine.
No, you're in trouble.
It's like, yeah. How'd you like your Valentine's Day? Yeah, it was fine. That probably means it wasn't fine. But I just want to warn you guys. You're gonna have to do better. Patrick,
yeah,
you said you liked it.
I thought it was really good. I mean, I was outside for about half of it, but the parts that I heard, I thought were really good.
So, romantic partners out there for Patrick, if he says, I thought it was really good, he may have been outside for half of whatever it was you guys were doing. So, the next generation, I think I just need to hurry up and die.
So what do? We donate?
We had no donations last week, which was really heartbreaking. That is kind of one of the ways we measure the show's viability, its popularity.
And how much people love you.
Well, if that was the case, then they'd just be backing up the brink truck right now. Oh, no, that's if I ran for city council and took donations from everybody. Okay, who had a project before city council. Bryant, one of our steadiest supporters, is back and as generous as ever. Longtime listener Michael is a first-time donor who chipped in with a very kind contribution. And John sent a Finn in this note, ask and you shall receive, because we ask for donations, as we do every week, and it is so easy to donate. Even Shawn knows how.
You hit a button.
Right, but where do they find that button?
On your website.
And our website, I'd like to think of it as our website.
Well, it does say ML Soul of Detroit.
mlsoulofdetroit.com.
Bang!
Click the
It
donate
should
button.
be.
Sean's
And
out.
Kaleena would agree with
Patrick's
this.
in, at least for half of it.
Kaleena would agree with this. It should be .org because you're very
.org?
because you're very educational.
I was just
That would be
ignoring-
edu.
You're part of the.
if
I meant
it's educational.
I meant edu. Sorry. Thank you, Patrick.
Yep.
And since Mark's gone, there's no chance we can edit that out. We would appreciate if you would subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is ML Elric. That way you always get a notification when new shows up. Please rate the show. Subscribe to the podcast. You can do that at our website. Or you can do that at any one of the platforms that's out there. Stitcher, Google, Apple, whatever. Please subscribe so you know when the new episodes are coming. Check out our amazing back catalog. We're coming up on 3 million downloads since we started this show a little more than 3 years ago. So we really appreciate all of you. Please rate the show. And, you know, if you see us on social media at Elric or on Facebook, ML Elric, please like, follow, do all that other shit that the kids today do, except meth. Don't do meth.
What kids today are doing meth?
I thought that was one of the 7 jobs you have.
No.
Maybe I was watching Breaking Bad. Damn it. I got to get caught up on all this stuff. Apparently there's another Star Wars out.
There's the Obi-Wan Kenobi TV show.
Oh, no, I'm thinking of the one with Anakin, where he's a little kid. That's just out. Phantom Menace or something like that.
That was released in 1999.
Man, I'm way behind.
You're an old man.
Sorry about that. Well, obviously I have a lot of homework to do. We also always invite your feedback, and Jocelyn writes, pick one of the 3 subjects to talk about. Say, okay. So we're going to pick the first one. She says, doesn't it seem like the press kowtows to Duggan, except pretending leaking an informant's name to his cronies is no big deal and a one-day story, while 15 years later we're still talking about Kwame's Red Navigator because the press back then literally had helicopters following that truck around. Okay, so let's back up a little bit. First of all, I don't think the press necessarily kowtows to Duggan. I do think what we've seen is a devastation in the media. When I was in City Hall covering Dennis Archer and covering Kwame Kilpatrick, the Free Press had 2 reporters in City Hall. The Detroit News had 3 reporters. Right now, we don't even have an office in City Hall, and each paper has 1 reporter assigned to cover City Hall. So there's just not the people power to do the scrutiny. The other thing is, how are you saying people are kowtowing when it was the media, Robert Snell of the Detroit News, that published the story about Duggan sharing the name of an informant with people after he learned that there was an informant working with the FBI who had bribed Detroit City Councilman Andre Spivey. So if the media was kowtowing, no one would report that story. Also, the only reason the mayor felt compelled to address it on the second day, again, not a one-day story, is because of media scrutiny and because he was asked about it. That is the press doing its job. A diminished press, but still trying to do our best. And if you'd like to help us do more, you can subscribe to the Free Press of the Detroit News. I think it's like $1 for 6 months. I mean, that's ridiculous. Come on. Subscribe to the paper. Let us get some more reporters. And by the way, the Free Press hired me because they want to see more scrutiny in City Hall and elsewhere. And that's why when we mentioned the donations that were made to city council members who are going to have a vote, we also looked at donations that were made to Mayor Michael Duggan. So we are doing our best. And if somebody has some great stuff on Duggan, hey, man, we're digging. Please give us a call. I hear all the time, how did Kilpatrick get 28 years in prison, but Duggan still walks around free? Well, because Kilpatrick, it was proven, did a lot of really criminal stuff that resulted in multiple prison sentences, while Duggan still has not been proven to have done anything criminal. We can only write what we know and what we can prove. If somebody's got something big on Mr. D, give me a call. You know where to find me. Going back to Kilpatrick and the Navigator, Jocelyn says, a Lincoln lease is what, $20,000? A relatively small sum versus Duggan's control of billions of dollars in local, state, and federal funds, plus all the power in land deals, city contracts, on and on. Anyone who's seen a few mob movies knows what can happen to rats when a boss figure like Duggan leaks their identity. Okay, so let's back up a minute. Every Detroit mayor has access to all those other things. The Navigator, by the way, was $24,995. It was for the mayor's wife. And the reason why they spent $24,995 was not because that was the cost of the lease. The lease was actually that much less. It was less than $24,995. But Kilpatrick sent people to go lease the Navigator and said, here's the money. And they just said, here's the money, give us a Navigator. We want a 1-year lease. And the dealer, and I know this because I talked to the dealer and I broke this story, said, that's too much money and we don't do 1-year leases, so we'll give you a 2-year lease. They didn't care about the cost. They just knew that the mayor's wife wanted her red Navy, and so they went and got it. That was at a time when the city was laying off employees and cutting back on programs. A terrible decision, an unjustifiable decision, and poor stewardship of a public purse that was shrinking all the time. So let's go back. By the way, Kilpatrick also in control of billions of dollars in local, state, and federal funds. A lot of those funds were steered to people who either were his friends or who he extorted. And when you want to talk about boss figures silencing people, let's not forget that Kwame Kilpatrick and his administration ruined the careers of police officers who were investigating wrongdoing and leaked their names, and in one case, their personnel records to the public to try and undermine them. So yes, Duggan is not a perfect person, but let's not confuse Mike Duggan with Kwame Kilpatrick because it ain't the same, friends.
Are we back in the main event, or did I miss something?
So you don't care what Jocelyn thinks. She's a supporter of the show.
No. But that wasn't.
You're just saying,
No,
Jocelyn,
you
Jocelyn,
read-
shut up already.
No, you read Jocelyn, and she made great points, as she always does. But I thought that was a Elrickian soliloquy. Sorry.
It's called setting the record.
All I know is I saw Kaleena over here shifting in her chair several times, and you know what that body language says.
Jocelyn has a little more to say, but Shawn is saying, I've heard enough from women. It's time to get to the next thing. I'm sorry, Jocelyn. But we do appreciate.
No, go ahead.
We do appreciate.
But can we keep it to Jocelyn though?
Sure. We're on to John. We're
Oh.
We're done with John. You're sick of. You said you're done with.
No, I'm not. No, she makes great points about the PGA.
No, she had two
about
other
the PGA
things
Tour.
for us to discuss.
Yeah, the PGA Tour. She makes a great point.
Do you want to give us some context?
No, you go ahead.
John says, enjoyed your discussion about the Republican candidates who submitted fraudulent petition signatures. That was on last week's show. If you missed it, you can go find it, and we encourage you to do so. Now, if I, as a candidate, hire a company to obtain the necessary number of signatures, and they then knowingly submit a bunch of false signatures, can't I sue the crap out of them?
Do you need a pillow, Kaleena?
What is the name of these companies? Who is in charge of these companies? Why don't we know their names? And why does Shawn not care about the same things as
Patrick,
the people
you
who
need a
support
blanket?
this podcast care about?
I'm good.
John, I believe they can sue. They could probably sue for breach of contract. I don't know the names of these companies, but you may be reading more about them in the Free Press. And the Free Press has written them, particularly my colleague Clara, who is just a killer on this stuff. You need to check out the great reporting that the Free Press has done on this, and the Detroit News has done as well. And they are possibly being prosecuted by the state of Michigan. The Attorney General, Dana Nessel, has said she is going to try and see whether or not there are some crimes there. But please follow Clara Henriksen of the Detroit Free Press. She's done some groundbreaking work on this, and most of your questions will be answered. Again, the subscription's $1. I mean, how can you not go wrong?
I think that's great. By the way, conjunctions are not your friend. Periods are, though.
John says, keep up the good work. Go green!
Thank you.
Speaking of
Thank you,
periods, I'm going to replace the period with an exclamation point and say, Carlos and Shawn!
Yeah, we're recording.
What's happening?
Nothing. We're recording.
Wow.
We're going to talk about recruiting. And your great coach, your favorite coach, rather, Mel Tucker. How about that? And what he's doing at Michigan State football.
So as part of the internship, and Kaleena is a podcaster and also a student, and Patrick is an aspiring communicator and journalist and podcast and all this. I would just tell you that that's not how you sell your show.
Yeah, you didn't sound very excited about it.
You didn't draw me in. I want to know more about the relationship with Brady and what made him so great. Everything you wrote about that, I just wanted more. And then I asked you about the Carlson Shawn podcast. Nothing. This isn't Seinfeld. You cannot do a show about nothing.
yeah, we
That's why ML asked me to read the sponsors and not you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Actually, I didn't want Shawn to read them because I want him to maintain as much
he has his
distance
ethical
from the commerce portion of this show. Since
what we do over at that little podcast is
we don't
about
care.
the banter. You know, it's right. It's about nothing.
Okay.
Maybe we will talk about Brady. We'll see. Yep. You satisfied?
I wish you'd found a period a little sooner.
I want to know what you're doing on the show, though. What's the next? What are you going to possibly do?
I think the answer is
That's
penance.
what I just said. Michigan State recruiting and Michigan recruiting. Lloyd Carr are losing out on Lloyd Carr. Not Lloyd Carr. Lloyd Carr's son. I don't know.
Is he from Saline or Saline?
What do you think, Kaleena?
The school?
Yeah, the city.
Saline.
There you go. Whatever she says, that's the authority.
Isn't saline something they
Saline's
inject
what you
with?
put. No, it's like your contact solution. Saline.
I went to college with a guy
Or
named
getting an
Larry from
IV.
Saline. He was an awesome dude.
Yeah, saline, when you use it in an IV to
Yeah.
offset the meth.
Yeah, me and my meth.
I don't know. How come you didn't tell me she was using that?
I had no idea. It was sort of one of those things you throw out there to see if they cop to it.
Can we help you?
I don't do math.
One of my friends sent me a. Oops, sorry. Continue.
No, he's capping. Go ahead.
No, yeah.
One of my friends sent
Shawn
me a
was
message
capping.
yesterday.
Helena does
silly.
not do meth.
I'm just being silly.
She might cook a little.
Sorry, Patrick.
Yeah, no problem. One of my friends sent me a message yesterday saying that a pipe
Saying
just
end the
burst
show?
in his ceiling, and then about 2 minutes later he says, "Nope, never mind. My stupid neighbors upstairs flooded their sink because they were so piped up on heroin that they had no idea they left the sink on."
Now, heroin's fine, but I just don't want you to do the math.
I'm not doing any of it.
Okay, I just want to get her attention because she's looking at her watch. 10 minutes ago, she had her
Okay.
her cheek resting on her hand.
I was up late last night. I was watching Only Murderers.
So you're not just working. Oh, on Hulu?
Mhm.
How is that?
I watched the whole first season yesterday.
So I guess you like it.
Yeah, once I start something, I need to finish it. And I told my parents, I want to watch a movie just so I can watch one thing and be done with it. And they're like, no, watch Only Murderers in the Building. And I was like, no, I want to watch a movie. They're like, no, watch Only Murderers in the Building.
Yeah.
So then I watched it till 3:30 in the morning.
Good for you.
Then I got up and drove from East Lansing here, and as soon as we are done, I will be driving.
Okay, well, we need to get Kaleena. It's a health issue here.
She's
A
like
safety issue.
She said this podcast reminds me of Only Murders in the Building because there's an attractive young woman and two creepy old guys.
Well, what about Patrick?
I'm just a slightly creepy
He's the
guy.
intern.
He's the super.
Oh,
in the bill. I've never seen the show, but I assume the billing is a super.
Yeah, maybe it
Yeah,
does.
she does. There's this.
Yeah.
there's
Okay,
it's a building manager.
Where's Cyrus?
Yeah, I
Right,
just.
Can
you
we
know,
edit this out, Mr. Zoos?
I just have one request, and that would be for Cyrus to take us out.
Can you dig that? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
And with these words, Mr.
ML Elric
concludes tonight's
podcast.